So I'd have to take the train in every morning. I'd have to catch the train. And I made a promise to myself that I would not give up on my business. I brought my laptop every single day and I did my business work on the train. And I just told my clients, I was like, oh, hey, sorry to bother you at 7 a.m. I've just got a super busy day, with clients.
Everyone, welcome back to the Walk to Wealth podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube or any of the podcast directories, make sure to do yourself one teeny tiny little favor and make sure to give us a follow because I don't want you to miss out on any of the amazing guests I got coming on this year. Without further ado, this is a special guest, and I've had already one guest whose episode's already out. Shout out to Chase. But I met Nicole when I was at my TV show that I still haven't really announced to you guys yet. More details to come in another episode. But me and Nicole, we met a couple weeks ago after the show, and then from there I headed off, and now we're here, and now we're gonna have a great conversation. So, for Nicole, for anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to get to know you, to get to meet you yet, tell us your elevator pitch. Who are you and what do you do?
All right, my name is Nicole Murphy, and I'm out of Boston, Massachusetts. My company is called Atalo Creative, and we are a marketing firm that elevates brands for small to medium businesses.
Amazing, perfect, nice and succinct. Well, take us back in a time machine, Nicole. What was little Nicole like? Were you always entrepreneurial? Did you have these big, crazy visions? Like, what were your childhood like growing up?
I would say little Nicole was a little hustler.
Okay.
Around 10 or 11 years old, my family, I have a big family. So my family, we had a summer house up in Maine, and they shipped all my aunts and uncles, shipped all my cousins up to our summer house in Maine. And I was one of the oldest kids. So the whole idea of like going outside and playing every day, like it was fun, but it got kind of boring. So I decided to, yeah, I decided to start a lemonade stand. And I started it with my cousin Timmy because he was one of the youngest kids, but he was one of the biggest and strongest. And I was like the smallest one. So he was a partner of mine to carry like the lemonade and the table and the chairs and the wagon and all that stuff. And I was the one, you know,
Running
making
the
sure that
business.
we had made a profit, all that good stuff. Yeah, by the end of the summer, we had my dad was our investor, and he bought us a generator and a hot dog steamer, and we had like lunch specials. We were selling like lemonade and hot dogs. We had regular customers. Um, it was awesome. And so I would say, yeah, as an entrepreneur, it started at a very young age, and really haven't changed since.
And that's amazing. So I always, when I introduce myself, I always say like I wasn't the traditional entrepreneur. Like I didn't have the paper route, and I always mention I didn't have the lemonade stand. I feel like that is like a staple, or like the traditional entrepreneurial story. It's like you either had like a paper route of some sort, you had a lemonade stand, or selling candy in school, or something. One of those three. There's a couple other I
Right.
can't think off the top of my head, but like it's like
Yeah.
every like
Just hustling,
entrepreneur, yeah, just hustling early. So let's talk about it. So you're age 10, you just hire your first employee. How did you convince your cousin Timmy to work for you and carry all the heavy stuff around?
I was like, listen, we're going to make bank, okay? And you can have
Okay.
half the profits every day. Like, no questions asked. All I ask is that you carry the lemonade, carry all the heavy stuff, and keep all the kids away from the lemonade stand from hanging out. Because they would come and they would want it to be like a hangout spot, but that was bad for business. So
Mm.
he was like, all right, yeah, like what else do I have to do? And he was awesome. He helped me out, but then at the end of the day, he would take his half and he would buy all the kids ice cream. Like all the kids it was on a island, and
Yeah.
all my cousins, he would buy everybody ice cream, and like it was like a parade of kids with ice cream walking home after a day of work. And I took all of my money. Like I didn't really know, but I took all of my money and I went back to the grocery store and I bought more lemonade. I bought cookies, what else, like bags of chips. I was, you know, it when it some days we get caught in the rain, so I would remake our sign, for different lunch specials and that kind of thing. I learned to, that in a tube of cookie dough, it makes, 20, 25 cookies per se. I
Mhm.
read that if I just learned that if you slice the cookies thinner, you can get more cookies out of one tube and you
Mhm.
can sell more cookies and make more money.
Yeah. And you learned this at what, 10 or 11 years old?
I was 10. Yeah, I was 10 years old. And my dad was just
Sheesh.
like, he was just like, "Oh my God, Nicole, what are you doing?" And I was just like, "Well, are you mad at me?" And he's like, "No, I'm not mad at you."
No, that's genius. This
So,
is like rich dad, poor dad in like real life. One person goes and spend
yeah,
all their money on stuff that doesn't, not buying any assets. He bought ice cream, right? And then you, the other
yeah,
person, went and reinvested into the business.
yeah. And exactly. And in the very beginning, I told my dad, I was like, "Dad, I think I want to start a lemonade stand." And he was like, I wouldn't do that. Only young, cute kids start lemonade stands. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to try it anyway. I mean, my dad told me
Ah,
in the very beginning, he's like, you probably won't be successful. I was like, I'm going to try it
yeah.
anyway. And I was making like 80 to $100 a day.
Sheesh. That is nuts for a 10-year-old. Like,
Yeah.
what do you even spend your money on at that age? That much money? Like,
Oh, well, my cousin Timmy, he said,
well,
I
he
have
took
so
40,
much
right?
money. I don't even know what to do with it all.
At that age, what can you really do? Like, buy infinite snacks is about it for the most part. I mean, what you
Yeah,
did with
no,
the
he
ice cream,
literally had infinite. He just was like, we'd go into the ice cream store and just be like, anybody, it's on me.
though. Well, shout out to Timmy for taking care of the family, I guess you could say. So that was at 10, you
Yeah.
had a lemonade stand, and right, and then from there, where did your journey continue on? Like, did it carry on? I know sometimes like people start off entrepreneurial and then something happens, middle school, high school. Sometimes they lose it. Sometimes they just keep on hustling. Like I had friends in middle school selling sneakers, like go into a sneaker convention with like 2, 3 boxes, come out with like 6, 7, 8 boxes of sneakers. Don't know what they did in there and how they magically made more boxes appear than what they came in with, but just like flip shoes, make money, and
Hmm.
so like and carry that out through middle school and high school. So was it kind of like that for you? Did you carry out that entrepreneurial spirit? Did you kind of lose it and like find it later on in life, or how did it go for you?
Yeah, I would say what really grew in my, school years was my creativity. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when I got into school, I took my artwork very seriously, and I wanted to go to art school, like art college, but my dad was like, "No, you're not going there. You're going to go to business school." So the most colorful form of business I thought was marketing. And to this day, I'm the basis of what I do is creative. You have to be an artist. So I just really, it was a journey of finding, myself and how can I make money at doing this. um
Mm-hmm.
so I was, I wasn't really a sort of a hustler through school or anything like that. Like I said, it was more of like an artistic sort of exploration phase. But then once I got out of school, I realized that I didn't want to work for somebody my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to do what I love to do, and make money at it at the same time. So I really wasn't making a lot of money for the first like 7 years of being in business. I had to have like odd jobs, but I
Yeah.
never gave up on it. Um, and in 2018, I had a client present to me a new model, which was like a retainer model. So he would
Mm-hmm.
hire me for 3 days a week, and I would essentially just work for him 3 days a week as a subcontractor, doing
Mm-hmm.
social media and editing and design and all that good stuff. So in 2018, it really kind of turned my business around to getting like the retainer clients, and then it kind of really projected my business upwards.
Yeah. So for anyone listening right now, when she said the word like retainer, just think of it as simple as possible. Money that's predictable that you know is coming in,
Yeah.
versus one-off little payments, or let's say someone buys a course, you get paid once, that's it. Whereas
Hmm.
retainer, usually some sort of like recurring payments that are coming in. It's always set up differently, but not to get too complicated. For anyone listening, that's what retainer means. You just know you got money coming in. Um,
Right.
and so take us back a little bit to, you said you got out of school, you realized you didn't want to work for someone. uh, was there something that made you come to that realization? Is it something that over the course of the 4 years that you kind of figured out? Is there like a specific moment, like where a boss just like really got on your nerves or something? Like, what made you come to that realization that, working for someone else the rest of your life isn't the path you really want to go down?
Yeah. Well, it first started out with like, I had this attitude of like, I'm not better than anybody else, but nobody's better than me. And that attitude didn't go well in the corporate atmosphere, like not at all. So a few times I was pulled aside and they were like, listen, this is not a good fit. This is not a good fit for you. And I was just like, I hated hearing those words, not a good fit. And then I got a really cool job being a marketing director for a franchisee of Dunkin' Donuts, which it started out really cool, but then it kind of went sour. Like they really wanted me to do more like door to door sales, and they weren't really like appreciating like the artwork that I was like putting out there. So I said to myself, like, I don't think this is a good fit. And the the moment I realized that this wasn't a good fit is when I called my doctor and I said, I'm so unhappy at my work. I don't know what to do. And they said, oh, well, maybe you should go on some antidepressants. And I was like, how about I just quit my job and like
Yeah,
do something that I like instead of taking antidepressants just so I can go to work, you know?
yeah. No, that is
So,
nuts.
right. And that's when I started Nmdesignz, that I just rebranded to Atalo Creative.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, I mean it wasn't easy.
Yeah. And so did you start you said you started your business like around the time you got out of college, but you were also taking on side jobs, right? If I'm not mistaken, for a
So
period.
I graduated in 2009 and I started my business in 2011.
Okay.
Um, so I started, yeah, just taking on logos. I mean, I was like doing logos and stuff for people that didn't even ask for logos. I'm like, you need a new
Yeah.
logo, or,
Yeah.
you know,
Just telling them what they need.
right. I'm like, here, you need this. Here you go. But yeah, and I actually did go door to door, and that got me a first break. I remember I walked into this company in Leominster, Massachusetts, and I'll never forget it. I walked in there, and there was probably about 10 women working in the office, and they all swarmed over me. Who are you? What are you doing? We don't allow solicitors. What's your business? And then the owner came out into the hallway and he goes, whoa, 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 ladies, what's going on here? And I gave the guy my elevator pitch. I was dressed in like business professional. And I go, my name's Nicole Murphy. I'm with Nmdesignz. And I can do logos and graphic design and photography and print work. And I can do anything that you need me to do. And he hired me on the spot.
Wow. That's amazing. So
And that kind
let's
of,
touch up on that a little bit more, because I think door to door sales is something that, at least for me, like when I got into entrepreneurship, like I didn't really know anyone my age doing door to door sales. And like it's a little more common in certain industries. For example, like solar, like everyone like does door to door
yeah.
sales. It's just like so like things like that is a little more common. But for me, it's something my first door to door sales experience was when I was in real estate, and I had to door knock a couple different neighborhoods. And so I would go around my little door hangers. Sometimes I would just go empty handed. I would just go door knocking to introduce myself. Hey, we have an open house coming up this Saturday. We'd love to invite you. See you there. The house is over there on, 47, blah, 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 right at the end of the street. We'd love to see you there if you can make it. Boom. And then just start the conversation. But it's one of those things where it was so cringy. Like walking up to strangers' houses, and I'm always in the back of my head thinking like, please don't open a door. It's weird, going into, well, this is like more so like general, anyone in a neighborhood, not like business owners, but I'm assuming you were going door to door for like different businesses.
Yeah, I was in like the center of whereas the town I was living in at the time, Leominster, Mass,
Hmm.
which is a pretty big town, like second to it's like the third biggest city in the state.
Oh, dope. Stanford
Yeah.
is, I think, like the third or fourth biggest city in Connecticut, where I'm
Oh,
based out
nice.
of. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I mean, in 2011 it wasn't so cringy like it is today. But you
It's a lost
know,
start.
yeah, I guess it is. But definitely like it was definitely nerve-wracking for sure. You definitely had to put yourself out there, but I did put myself out there, and all you need is like one good client to
Mhm.
kind of project you in, into the future. He was the owner of that company, knew a lot of people, and
Mhm.
he told everyone about me.
Yeah.
And I even have clients to this day that he has referred me to because of him.
Wow. So walk us through that time period. So you said 11, you started,
Hmm.
18, you had your big break,
Yeah.
right? So
Yep.
what was that time period like of just trying to get your big break, but falling short of like hitting the catalyst that you needed to really like get the ball like really, you know, rolling
Rolling.
as much as you would like it?
Well, in that time frame, I had a couple of I was basically accident prone. I flipped my car and got like a severe concussion. And then
Okay.
literally 2 weeks later, I was on my motorcycle and somebody hit me on my motorcycle. So I got another concussion like back to back. So that really like messed with my head, and I really needed my brain. I need my brain to
Be
design
creative.
everything. So my business really took a hit around it was like probably 2014 to 16, yeah, around that time frame. So I ended up working for Boston Beer Works, which is they're no longer around, but um, they are Boston Beer Works, so they're based out of Boston, Mass. And I lived in Pepperell, Mass, which was an hour and 20 minutes away. So I'd have to take the train in every morning. I'd have to catch the train. And I made a promise to myself that I would not give up on my business. I brought my laptop every single day, and I did Nmdesignz work. I did my business work on the train. And I just told my clients, I was like, "Oh, hey, sorry to bother you at 7 a.m. I've just got a super busy day, with clients." And or I'd email them at 6 o'clock at night, and I'd be like, "Oh, so sorry, I've been super busy with clients." Like, but they didn't know that I was working full time.
Yeah. No, that's
So
amazing. It's like that typical like figure it out spirit that you kind of have, right? It's
little
like,
white lies,
hey,
you know what I mean? Like, you gotta like
yeah.
come up with it quick, to just get you through. And then when I was better and that job like kind of faded out, it just didn't work out. I made the leap to go back into my business full time. And it was scary at first because I had a mortgage, and there's definitely been nights where I've cried myself to sleep, not knowing how I'm going to make the mortgage.
Hmm.
But I'm here today.
Yeah, you're live, right?
So,
What's the worst that could happen, right?
right. I guess, and this too shall pass. When
Hmm.
you think it's so hard and you don't know what you're doing, it, it's, but you do get through it. You do get through it. And then, um, I just, tried my best to keep my business going, keep my costs down. And then, like I said, in 2018, I was presented with this retainer model, that really kind of created some stability for me that, allowed me to keep growing.
So I want to ask you a little something before we talk about we're 18 and beyond, right? So you said you were on the train, you committed to yourself like, hey, I'm not gonna die in my business, right? I'm not gonna let it quit. What does like where does that come from? You mentioned this too shall pass. So for anyone that doesn't listen, that's very philosophical
Mm,
answer, right? So like, did you always
yeah.
have like, were you someone that like you relied on quotes and stuff like that to get you through the hard times? Like, what were you reminding yourself to like get you through? Is it just the fact that you just really didn't want to work for someone else like that bad that was firing you? Like, what kept the engine going during those times where you have a concussion back to back, right? Which is probably the worst thing for an entrepreneur who all we do is think for the most
Right.
part.
Yeah.
Like
We use our
and then now
brain.
you're a creative entrepreneur, like you're doing marketing work. So it's like you're thinking literally all the time. So it's like
Yeah.
there's never any break. So it's like where did that desire kind of stem from that made you just want to keep on pushing instead of like pivoting or quitting on that, idea?
Well, I would say it actually came from when I was in a when I was actually 2 years old. At 2 years old, I was in a car accident that left. I almost died from it at two.
Wow.
Um, so I was in the hospital from age 2 to age 5 with huge, like, what do you call it? Surgeries.
Surgeries, yeah.
I lost most of my digestive organs. That's why I'm so small. Um,
Yeah.
but anyways, I lost most of my digestive organs, and from age 2 to age 5, I was oftentimes alone in the hospital. Um, and I was oftentimes in a lot of pain, and
Hmm.
there was nothing that anybody could do. And so I just learned from a very young age to just survive, like just
Hmm.
get through it, because you will get through it. I mean, I kind of have this mentality that like you'll live, you'll be fine. Like, um, so yeah, I think that was there was no other option for me. Like that was just how I was bred as soon as
Yeah.
as a young kid, that there was no other option. Like it doesn't matter if I'm like near death, I will still survive because
Mm.
I've been there. And now I'm actually, in that moment when I was like I'm not going to let up on my business, I'm doing a lot better than I was. I've been way lower. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? You've been I can guarantee you that for anybody who's listening, if you think, "Oh, I'm at a pretty low point in my life," I can guarantee you you've probably been at a lower point in your life and you came back from it.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of those things where it's like, I mean, especially in your case, like you dance with death and live to tell the story. There's not too many
Yeah.
other things that can like really, compete to that. But it's like a lot of times people, and for whatever reason, like and I feel like with a lot of parents too, like they always like, oh, I want better for my kids so that they don't have to go through what I went through, but like what you went through made you who you are, and
Mhm.
so you're almost depriving them, and not to make this a parenting conversation, but you're almost depriving them of like the opportunity to grow and get the calluses they need to
Mm.
become, resilient, perseverant human beings, right? If you don't go through anything, you never be able to get through anything when you're older and have to face some hard stuff. And so it's like,
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
and as a mom right now, I'm realizing that it's painful to have your kids go through hard things. It's painful to
yeah,
watch. And you want them to not feel any pain, but in the long run it doesn't end well that way.
mhm,
You do have to struggle in order to really appreciate the things that, you know, come to you after the fact.
yeah, no, 100%. And so you got through that, that 7 year span where like it was like jobs and kind of in your business, but things weren't going the way you seem. And then you said you got that one client that made you like just change the trajectory of everything. And you mentioned that you finally got the stability you were looking for. So a lot of
Mhm.
times when like people think of entrepreneurship, they think of something that's like completely unstable. There's, ups and crazy downs as long, attached to it. It's never anything that you can get any rest, and rest assured that money is coming in. So it's like, how are you able to create that stability for yourself so that you can run your business without running your mind like completely crazy?
Well, I think to get to that point of retainer, I built up enough skills so that he could hire me for, 8 hours a day, 3 days a week. But because I had built up enough skill set so that I could fill those times. He could say, I want you to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I could do it all in the marketing arena. So, because when I first started, all I could do was logos and graphic design. And a lot of people asked me, oh, can you do websites? And I said, no, I can't do websites. And they're like, oh, okay, well, then no thanks. So I would sit on the couch till 2 in the morning teaching myself how to make websites. And then I gained the skill of how to make websites. Um, and then after that, I was like, oh, everyone's sending, I got sued for borrowing a picture off the internet, which is a big no-no. I didn't know that at the time. Copyright,
Yeah.
what is that? So I learned that I started learning photography, because you need to take your own pictures for copyright purposes. So that was another thing under my belt. And then I started learning videography. So I just kept adding these tools to my belt, and then that became almost like a nice package that was appealing to a client that needed all of that stuff. And he said, it's worth it to me to hire you as a retainer.
Yeah. It was making yourself undeniable, right? There's a lot of times where, like, I was talking to my mentor a couple weeks ago, and I was just telling him, like, I feel for my stage of where I'm at, I know more than I should, which
Mm-hmm.
is great for the long term because eventually when I grow and I scale, I'll be able to scale and grow quicker because there's concepts that I know now that pertain to later stages of business, right? Especially like at the blocks, right? We're learning over here equity splits and
Yeah,
your company value and all that stuff. I'm not worried about any of that stuff for I don't know how long, but I'm not gonna be worried
you
about that
killed
stuff
it
for a
though.
while.
You
Thank you.
killed
I
it
didn't
though.
kill it on those 2 days. I did not kill it. I killed it on the social media marketing days. That's when I
Yeah,
killed it, and it made up for those 2 days, right?
yeah.
And so, but I know all these things, but for the short term, it makes it a little bit difficult because then you're just like, okay, you want to do this, you want to do that, you want to build a funnel, you want to, you create a website, you want to make videos, you want to do content, you want to have all these different ideas, and like it gets hard because you get distracted. So I want to ask you, especially being a creative person, like what made you stay focused on one idea? Because like for me, I'm doing better now. Like I'm a lot better than when I first started. But when I first started, like I was in real estate, I was teaching social media classes, I had my podcast, working a job. Like I wanted to do everything under the sun at the same time, and you couldn't convince me that I couldn't. Like I
Right.
could get everything done. I assumed, and so I was one completely wrong. But to bring it back to you, where's it like? What made you focus on just Nmdesignz, which is now your, you rebrand it? It's a Talo or
Atalo. Yeah. A
Atala.
T
There we
T
go. So,
O
what
L
made
L
you
O.
stay focused on that vision and not get distracted by anything else? Because I know when I was first getting into business, like I wanted to do everything.
Um, I mean, yeah, it's natural for entrepreneurs to have like severe ADHD. But I think are you saying like not have the idea of like going to work somewhere else or just staying
No, just
focused on
doing another business, like
oh,
another
doing
business
another
idea.
business?
Like
Oh,
for example, like
I've done my fair share of like little businesses here and there. Like when I was when I had my two kids, I had them back to back. I stayed home. I had to stay home, and I mean, I worked from home, but a lot of times I handed off the reins to my assistant. So I started this little macrame business where I knew I could watch my kids at the same time and weave macrame. And I learned how to use Shopify. I learned how to connect it to Facebook and Instagram and sell stuff on Instagram. Um, you know, and then when I had a pipe burst in my house, I had to renovate the whole first floor. I started an interior design business to get the subcontractor rates of all, like, you know, Sherwin Williams will give you like a discounted rate if you're a subcontractor for paint.
Yeah.
So I started that business to like save on, you know, materials and stuff. So I've definitely started a bunch of businesses that you know, I don't really like, as my the phase of my life changes, I don't keep going with them. But Nmdesignz has always been there, or Atalo Creative has always been there. I really, I guess I'm just the type of person that like never quits on something.
Hmm.
Um, you know, like the other businesses that I have, they're still there. I mean, I wouldn't say I've quit on them. It's just, you know, NM
Not the
Designs
right
is,
season.
it's what?
I said not the right season.
Exactly. It's just, it's, Atala's always been my soul. It's always been the, you know how Wes said at the blocks, step into your truth.
Yeah.
Um, this is my truth. It is 100% me. And I love every bit of it. I mean, there are days when I'm like, I really don't want to be doing this right now, you know, but there's not many days like that.
Yeah, 100%. I think the good times definitely outweigh all of the bad. Like for example, like the blocks, like that experience alone outweighs like the last like three big negative experiences alone. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, and that's just one conference that we were at for 5 days, or like one event that we were at for 5 days, and we still have the
Yeah.
whole rest of the year. So like little things like that, or not really a little thing, but you know, events like that just make up for it all. And so I'm kind of a little curious. So, when like a Talo, right? So that's like the main focus of where you have everything. You went underwent a rebrand. For me, so I was originally in real estate. Like that's what people knew me as, right?
Mhm.
And then I got into teaching social media, and then I got into teaching like AI. And now everyone knows me as like the AI guy. They either know me for my hair or my AI. That's one of the two things, right? Or both. And so it's like it was a little difficult trying to change. There's some people, even still now, like, hey John, like how's real estate going? And it's like, I don't know. You tell me. Like I don't remember the
Yeah.
last time I was. It's been like almost a year and a half. So what was it like rebranding your business and like changing? I know it's still similar. Like you're not changing industry like I did, but never a rebrand's a rebrand. So what was that like for you and helping other people get on the same page with what you have going on moving forward?
So I'm actually like in the middle of rebranding. The official date is May 20th. So in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing a
Okay.
ribbon cutting. I have it marked in my calendar. Say goodbye to Nmdesignz. um, I think there are points that it's emotional. Honestly, I'd say the most emotional part for me will be I have a license plate that says NMDZ, and
Mm.
everybody that knows me knows my license plate. They know NMDZ. And I've had a client before. I remember talking to him years ago. I said, "Should I get rid of that?" And he goes, "No. That is that is who you are." Like I mean, I don't boil it down to like my whole identity is in a license plate, but it's just, you know, a huge pillar in my persona. And so I think when I applied for a new license plate, and I think the day that I switch that out, that's going to be tough. That's going to be hard
Mm,
because
yeah.
that's really going to be the time where it hits me like, okay, you're growing up now, you're grown. So please, like now it's the time to step into this new brand, this
Yeah. This new
adult
season, this new
brand.
phase, this new era.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can't step into it with the person you once were. It's like,
exactly. And that's, and I was like, at first I was like, I'm not going to change my license plate. That's who I am. And then I was like, really? Your brand is everything you are. Like like the block said. And I was like, I got to do it. I got to do it.
Mm.
So,
Nah, I'm
yeah.
gonna say it never feels good. Like, cause for example, like I put in my 2 weeks. It's about to be a year since I quit my job and went all in on my business. And but I still remember vividly. Like I was downtown, and this is like because I launched my course that morning, and it went really well. I had like 20 people enroll off my I did a
Oh,
4 day
that's awesome.
challenge, and so first 3 days were free. Day four I pitched, and like that day I had 20 people enroll. So I was feeling like the man. Like I was on cloud nine. Life is amazing. God is good. Like you couldn't tell me anything. Like I got off that webinar, closed my laptop, went to my like my hallway right outside my room, and I was like, "Thank you, God." Like God knows I needed that. 'Cause that was the biggest break because I said I was trying to do real estate and social media, and all these other things, and none of it was working out for me. Like I tried
Yeah.
the agency model where like I was doing work for people, and I was like that didn't work out, and I didn't sell any houses in real estate. I had already tried to get into real estate investing in the past. It's just like that launch was like the break I needed. And then later that afternoon, I think it was like maybe 4 or 5 o'clock, and I was already downtown. And from downtown to my restaurant job was about like an 8 minute drive. So real quick drive. And I remember just getting in my car and driving over because now I was like, okay, I ran my errands. Now I gotta go to the restaurant. And so as I'm driving there, I just remember like that this I don't know, this feeling in my stomach, just like I wouldn't say like knots almost. And it's like to me, I wanted to quit for so long, not because I hated the place, but because I wanted to be in a position where I can go all in on my business. But I
Mm,
just never had the funds to do so because the business, well, I was struggling to get it off the ground. And
right.
like finally I launched, it went well, and now I can get it off the ground.
Yeah.
But like there was still a part of me that was clinging on that was just like that didn't want to go. That didn't want to go put the 2 weeks in. That just was like, all right, let me just thug it out. I'll just stay, maybe work less hours or something like that. Like part of me was like trying to hold on for dear life and not leave, even though I
It's the
finally had the
fear.
opportunity to do so. Yeah,
It's
and
the
I
fear
I
for
remember
sure.
it so vividly driving over. So it's like, I mean, it's probably how you're gonna feel as well. Like you're gonna have that pit in your stomach, that not in your stomach, where it's like I want to cling on to this because this is also for me like that restaurant job was that's like my whole adulthood. Like I just became legal not too long ago, and so like for the
Mm,
2 years leading up to it, and the year, that I did become legal, like I was there for the most part. Like I spent almost all my pandemic working at the restaurant, and it's just like
yeah.
that is so much of like who I am, or at least who I was. So for me, it just kind of like hard to like put end that chapter and just
Yeah,
begin the next one.
I can definitely relate to that. I felt that way when I was working for Boston Beer Works, and I knew that I was making a salary, and I was making a salary that was paying my bills, but I knew that it would end because I knew that he wasn't going to give me a raise or
Mm.
anything for that matter. So I made a promise to myself that if he doesn't give me a raise at the year mark as he promised, I was going to quit. And I had nothing to go back to except for my business. And that's why I never gave up on my business, because I needed clients to go back to. And it felt literally taking the train back that day like I had jumped off a cliff and there was no one catching me. And that
Yeah.
sinking feeling is like, wow, I better make this work. You know what I mean?
You
It's like
put
I
the
felt
pressure
like I
on.
jumped off. What?
I said, puts the pressure on.
Yeah, it's like I felt like I jumped off a cliff, but I had the opportunity to make a parachute on my way down. And it was like, you better this better the better work, because otherwise you're just crashing and burning.
It'll be a hard fall when you get to the
It's a
bottom.
hard fall, and I've fallen many times, and they suck. It sucks. But I didn't want to fall that time. I had more to lose. You know what I mean? And the older you
Yeah, with
get,
the
the
more.
more things you have to lose.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. I always say too, the older you get, the more you have to fight for as well. I
Yeah.
love like I love perspective. That's one of the beauties of like, and you said you talked before we started pressing record about your podcast. Like that's one of the best things. It's like you gain so much perspective from all these different people, and it's just like
Yeah.
you view the world so differently because you kind of get this giant accumulation of all these different perspectives from all these different walks of life, and like what circumstances led them, what variables led them to viewing the world the way they do and why they do. And it's
Mm.
like you take all that information and it's like then you able to see the world a little clearer, right? And you're able to switch lenses according, like, as needed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I had no idea what to expect with the podcast, but then once I launched it, I had a blast. I
Yeah.
cannot wait to do the next episode. It's just it's so cool. You're able to you're not even able you don't even realize it, but you end up sharing like raw stories that are actually relevant to your topic.
Yeah.
When thinking about it outside of a podcast or outside of that situation, you just keep all of that stuff inside.
Yeah, because at face value doesn't make sense, but when you're in
Right.
conversation, uh, you find a way to apply it that you probably wouldn't have thought of. It's like that
Right.
mastermind principle from Think and Grow Rich, right? It's like when two people meet, like a secret third, whatever person, like third brain comes together or something like that. I forget how exactly they word it. I need to reread Think and Grow Rich. Long story
Mm.
short, when two or more people get together, it's like you get this third level of consciousness that wouldn't have been there had you guys not been together. So both you guys are getting pushed to a level that you wouldn't have been able to reach on your own. Or if you're doing a podcast with like three people or four people, then it's like the more the merrier. And you guys are all like thinking of things and ideas come to you that you probably wouldn't have thought of.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I'm doing it. I'm co-hosting it with another a friend of mine who also has a graphic design marketing business, and she's very well spoken. And it's really
Yeah,
cool to just sit and chat with her.
I bet. So speaking of podcasting, this is a perfect time to let everyone know, Nicole, where can we find you at? Where can we connect with you? Where can we find out more about your new rebranding that's coming? By the time this dropped, the rebrand would have already gone through. But where can we
Okay.
keep up with you? Where can we find you? Because by the time this goes live, you're no longer Nmdesignz anymore. So like, where can
No.
we look for you? Where can we find you?
Sure. So you could find me on the internet, atolocreative.com. That's ATTOLLO creative.com. That's the website. And then also, our podcast is called The Marketing Department by Nicole Murphy and Tamar Russell Brown. So the marketing department is spelled DEPT period, like it's abbreviated.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean those are I got Facebook and Instagram as well, which will also be Atalo Creative.
Dope. So everywhere Tala Creative, and then
All
podcast,
all
the
across the board.
marketing director, and it's gonna be in the show notes for anyone that can't spell or just wants it the easy route. So
Yeah.
now it's time for our famous 5 questions. Same 5 questions asked every single guest. Lightning round. Question number one is: what is the most impactful lesson you've learned in life?
The most impactful lesson I've learned in life. I've learned a lot of lessons and they all sucked. Um I would say if I was to talk to somebody who's younger than me, to having credit cards, just because you have credit cards with credit available on them does not mean you have free money. That's what I learned in my 20s and 30s is like when I was in my 20s, my dad taught me how to build credit, but I was never taught how to manage that credit.
Hmm.
And I would say I'm really paying the price now of trying to pay that back. So I'd say that's probably one of the hardest lessons that I've had to learn.
What is the most admirable trait a person can have?
Admirable, telling the
Yeah,
truth. Telling the truth, whether you like whatever it is, whether you like to hear it or not.
100%. If you had to change someone's life but only had one book, which book would you recommend?
I would say Matilda from Roald Dahl. That was my favorite book when I was a kid. And I don't know why I loved it. I think it was because she was just so passionate about, um, her skill and what she did, and she didn't let anybody stop her.
What is the legacy that you're working on leaving behind?
Elevating brands for small to medium businesses. That is my
And for
tagline, and making small businesses look better in the marketing arena.
and for anyone that wants to embark on their walk to wealth today, what is the first step you recommend they take?
The first step to the walk to wealth. The first step. Define your passion. What's your passion? What do you love to do? Because if you try to follow the money, you're not going to be happy. You first got to define what you do every day. Are you going to be happy doing it? Because that's what I followed. I always followed my passion, and I don't feel like what I do every day is actually work. I see my other friends and stuff. I'm like, damn, how can you like go to work every day? That's crazy. Um, I mean, I say follow your passion and worry about the money second.
When you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and that is so true.
All right, Nicole, man, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. I'm glad we were able to connect after the show. I'm glad we were able to do this podcast. If you ever need a guest on yours, I'm also a marketing guy, so I would love to, talk some marketing and geek out. I don't know. It sucks because like I don't ever really get into like the weeds of marketing on this show ever. It's more so like
Mm.
about the journey and like more it's like how we got to where we are. But like every now and then I like to geek out on like funnels and conversions and click through rates and all that stuff, copywriting, the whole 9 yards. Sometimes I dabble a little bit with like color psychology. A little, I know a thing or two about a thing or two in the marketing arena as well.
All
So
right, all
if you
right.
ever need someone, let me know. But thanks again for hopping on.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.